Stephen Thomas with Reports on Housing. Have a rather unique broadcast today. I've had so many different questions, there's not really a dumb question that's out there. I love it when people ask questions because it means that people are engaged and they're trying to figure out what's going on. So, even if you think your question's too small, it does not matter. This is what it's all about. It's about engaging and educating and learning so that we understand as much as we possibly can where we are today, where have we been, and where are we going. That's what economics is all about. And it's very progressive because we've already seen some movement and some changes in the marketplace throughout this year that it's been a continuous evolution, and we will go into exactly what that evolution is. So with the questions and answers, the way it's going to work, we're going to ask that you ask any questions, put them in the chat. We'll see how much time we have to get to everything because I had a number of people reach out to me and actually send me their questions. So I am going to answer those as best as I possibly can. And so I do want to get into a few of just an overview of what we're seeing right now and kind of an update. So we're not going to get into too much detail, but did want to talk about a few different things. So first, I'd like for everybody to go to youtube.com/reportsonhousing. Go to Reports on Housing on YouTube and smash that like button. Please subscribe. The more subscribers we have, the more that we can disseminate the proper information that's out there. And that would be absolutely fantastic. I hope that everybody can do that. That would be great. So please smash the like button and subscribe to our channel. So anyway, this is really about Q&A. It's the questions that you have. I'm not making up any of this stuff. I've had a number of people, like I said, reach out to me, and I'm sure that there are going to be more questions going forward. But first, I wanted to do a market overview of kind of what we're seeing as of today, because I crunch the numbers every 2 weeks, and this is where the reports come from for all of Southern California and Orange County, LA, and San Diego. San Bernardino, Riverside, I do that in between, and but they are encompassed in the Southern California report that we're doing right now. That is as of today. So we still have a supply crisis. I want everybody to understand that we have very, very minimal number of homes on the market. And you can see this actually across the United States, that there really are not that many homes that are on the market. Let's see if I revert. Hang on just a second. Let's see. Important because for 2 weeks continuously, we've actually come down 1% and another percent. And what that basically means is that, you know what, we've kind of peaked already and already hit that peak. Oops, let's see. So I want everybody to look at it and see that we're actually coming down. Where are we normally at this time of year? 956,428. So that is almost double where we are today. And that's kind of, prior to that, the inventory was slowly but surely coming down. It was over 1 million this time of year, and then it's gradually made its way down until we got to, if you see that 2019 number right in the middle, 956,428. That is how many homes we had in the market in 2019, right prior to COVID at this time of the year. So 2019, we had 956,000, a lot more homes than where we sit right now today. And as far as where are we going to find these listings, I have no idea where all the listings are going to come from, because that is what you really need for values to plunge, is for there to be a big disparity in the number of homes on the market compared to where demand is. Demand really has softened, but it's being matched up against that low, the low inventory. So yes, we do have low demand. The demand that we're seeing is very much reminiscent of Great Recession demand. But like I said, we're duking it out between supply and demand because of the fact that with the low demand, there really is not that many homes that are available right now today. And how do we measure demand, Tony? Tony is asking that. We measure demand by the last 30 days worth of pending sales activity. So for available listings, we're looking at all of the homes that are available to show that a buyer can see today throughout every county, and this is throughout Southern California. And demand is just a snapshot of the last 30 days worth of pending sales activity. Yes, some fall out and all that. However, we look at that same metric over time, even during the Great Recession. Prior to the Great Recession, we date all the way back to 2004. So that is what we're kind of seeing. We're seeing that we still have a very low demand, but it's being pit up against very, very low inventory. And you can see this right now in the inventory. This was as of today, September 15th, 30,220, 0%. It was a 0% change. It actually went up 72 homes. So we were coming down and then it flatlined. And the reason I'm feeling that it flatlined, and we'll see how it works out, is if these interest rates stay sticky high, our inventory can kind of like level off and then fall once we get towards Thanksgiving, even though we've already hit a peak. Now, normally we would be seeing a lot more homes when the underlying interest rate has been rising like it has this year. Normally we see a lot of homes come on the market, this typical number, and they languish on the market. And they languish until they're pulled off the market, someplace around October, November. So that's where we peak. Normal peak is actually during the summer between July and the end of August. So that is where we normally peak. We actually peaked during our normal peak. And the only reason that happened is because we didn't have all the homeowners come on that would normally languish in a market like today where we have low demand. The reason for that is we just aren't having homeowners place their homes on the market. I have a term for it. It's like homeowners are hunkering down. They're staying put because they're enjoying their low interest rates. It's like, I believe 72% of everybody has a loan out there has an interest rate of 4% or below. So what would be the motivation for them to place their homes on the market? So last year we were at 20,181, which is 10,000 fewer than where we are today. And that was, of course, a real low. And then 3-year average, 41,230. That is the 3-year average prior to COVID, 2017, 18, and 19. And that was an 11,000 more where we are today. And we've already peaked out. So for the rest of the year, it's going to be kind of flatlining. And then we'll go down towards the end of the year, and which just means that we're going to be below where we were prior to COVID. So we're continuing to have that muted inventory going forward. That's kind of where I told you this is where we peaked, and we're going to be flatlining and then coming down. So as far as demand, last 30 days with the pending sales activity, here we are. This was as of today. It went down 3% or down 320. So the market kind of slowed a little bit in the last couple of weeks. The reason for that is because we have the listing inventory remained the same, yet demand came down just a little bit. So as a result, things slow down a bit. And I think this has to do with the absorption of these higher rates at around 6% or higher. So we've had demand come down a little bit. Last year at this time, we had 18,312, which is 50% higher than where we are today, an extra 6,100 pending sales for a 30-day period. The 3-year average is 15,696, which is 26% higher. So a little over 0.25% higher. That's 3,217 extra pending sales. And so the overall speed of the market is right here. You can see it went up a little bit. It actually went up 2 days. On September 15th, that's today, it went up from 2 weeks ago on September 1st at 72 days to 74 days. So it's not really like seizing or slowing that much, but it is slowing slightly over the last couple of weeks. We'll have to see where this goes. And this all depends upon what happens with interest rates and the number of homeowners coming on the market. So last year at this time, we were at 33 days, and the 3-year average that's prior to COVID is at 81 days. So we're actually right now the market is a little bit hotter than where it was just prior to COVID at this time of the year between 2017, 18, and 19, the averages there. And in 2006, I want everybody to understand where we are today. And this is what a big part of my thesis is all about. The reason we had values crush down because we had very, very similar demand, but we had we had quadruple the amount of inventory in 2007. And in 2006, we had, it was a little bit shy of the heights that we received that we got in 2007. But in 2006, we had an expected market time in all markets above 200 days. And in 2007, that shot up to 400 days plus. So you can imagine if you have everything out there, there's nothing that's selling. The only way to get it to sell is to reduce the price when there is that much competition. And if you remember back to those days, there were 3, 4, or even more homes on the market, almost on every street, every block. And when you have that much seller competition and not much demand, the only way to win out, and people had to sell. They were forced to sell. They were losing jobs. They were upside down in their houses. They have had loans that they couldn't even afford once they reset. There was many, many different factors. But I wanted to talk about our sponsor. It's Jason Thibodeau at JMJ Financial. Thank you, Jason, for your continued sponsorship. You can reach him at 714-330-8263. That's 714-330-8263. And they have an earnest money deposit, EMD protection program. That is where you can get your earnest money deposit back. It's guaranteed. You pay a fee of only $19.95. You get that back if you close escrow. If you don't, you know what? You get back your deposit. So this is just one of those reassuring programs that they have. And then we also have they also have the lock and shop mortgage, where you're able to pay money up front and then lock your loan for a certain amount of time. Of course, the higher that you pay, the longer you can take your time in looking for a home. And then, of course, they also have different buy downs. They have a mortgage buy down program, and a lot of sellers can utilize this as a strategy rather than reducing the asking price. Or it's maybe one where if you've got somebody that you've got on the hook and you're a little bit apart, maybe you can throw something like this in there. So they have a 2-1 buy down mortgage program. So their methodology is simple. We don't make promises we can't keep. So contact Jason Thibodeau at JMJ Financial. You can contact him at 714-330-8263. That's 714-330-8263. Thanks, Jason, for your continued sponsorship. And now we get right into the Q&A. So I can douse this camera. Let's see, where do I go? There we go. And there we go. So I already have some questions. Jeff Moss asked, oops, dropped all my questions. But anyways, rookie. How do you measure demand? We asked that. Pending escrows and or other data is pretty much the last 30 days worth of pending sales activity. And Jeff Moss asked, let's see what Jeff said. The Las Vegas market is seeing increased inventory, reduced pricing, and builders offering all sort of incentives to move inventory. Why is this different than the OC market? There are a number of things. So I've been tracking Sacramento Valley, the Bay area, as well as Santa Barbara, Arizona, and now Vegas as well. I've been doing that since February. And they're having an issue of they have not quite peaked out on their inventory, and it is starting to slow. It's just where they peaked out, they actually are in my threshold of what I refer to as a buyer's market, a slight buyer's market. So the market actually in Vegas tips slightly in favor of buyers. It's over 120-day expected market time for all of Vegas. That is not what we're talking about. In OC that you're referring to, it's in the 60s, which is like half of where they are at Vegas. So the market is a bit more. So in Vegas, we can definitely see it. We're starting to see some markets where they can have pushbacks in pricing. And I'm not saying that prices aren't going down, because overall, any frothy comp that we had, and we had a few months of extra frothy comps, especially everything that closed in the month of, I believe it was April, where we hit by about in California, I think it was at 104% was the sales to list price ratio, and that was for California. And the median time of market was 7 days. And the number of homes that sold above their asking, it was at 72 point some percent. It was the highest ever for the state of California, and the number of homes that sold above their asking price. And a lot of those selling over asking price, we were hearing things like 50, 100, 150, even $200,000 above the asking price. Those are extremely frothy comps. And now the buyers that are out there, they're looking at stuff in this city. They're also looking at stuff in neighboring cities, or maybe this side of the city and the other side of the city. And there will be a big differential because of those extra frothy frothy comps because we didn't sell a whole heck of a lot, but we did sell some that were at ridiculous values. Now that we don't have all that froth in the system, people are placing their homes on the market, and the people that price it according to the frothy comps, and then the people that are pricing it according to the comps that are near their neighborhood, now there's a differential in price. If we're talking a 3,000 square foot home that they're listed way up here at Y, and we have another 3,000 square foot home that's very similar listed at X on the other side of the city, that buyer is looking at everything and they're saying, I'm not paying that. And that one that's priced extra because of the frothy comp has to come down. And now that frothy comp doesn't exist. And as a matter of fact, something that I'm hearing quite often right now are appraisals are coming way in over the where the term of the agreement is. And that is because it's taken into consideration a lot of these frothy comps. So we're starting to see quite a bit of that. So there will be pushback in pricing, and then there's going to be this big tug of war between buyers and sellers, especially as the inventory shrinks at the beginning of at the end of this year, and it gets less and less. There will be fewer buyers in the marketplace at the same time, and then we're going to get to the beginning of next year with very few homes on the market, and we'll see some demand, but it's going to be extremely sticky until we have sellers that really have to sell. They don't have yeah, you know what, I like to see if I can sell. It's I've got to sell. Job loss or sickness or death or divorce or different things like that, where they want to dispose of their homes. That's where we can see a little bit of pushback because there's not going to be a whole lot of homes that sell. I do not see prices plunge because I've already talked to you about not having enough inventory matched up against low demand means that there's still a stickiness overall to the market because there's not enough of those people that are out there. So OC and pretty much everybody across the board. The only one is San Bernardino. They're like knocking on the door of a balanced market. So right now, everybody lines up where the market is favoring a little bit in the negotiations towards sellers. But now in like San Bernardino, it's kind of like kumbaya. You have to really figure it out. Buyers and sellers both have to give until they come to an agreement. So let's see if we have what else we have. What's going on in the Las Vegas labor market? I would have to explore that more, Jeff. I don't know the Las Vegas labor market. I do know the overall labor market for the country and for Southern California. That's what I have been following right now. Not there yet. Let's see. So supply and demand and jobs. We'll just have to see. Yeah, the supply and demand is different in Vegas than it is in OC. And you can contact me offline and we can go ahead and go over all that stuff. Let's see. Robert has a question and is, how do you think changes in the housing market will affect the rental market? People looking to rent homes. So we've already seen in the rental in where the rents are going right now is there are more multifamilies that are coming online, and we're actually seeing rents stabilize. They're continuing to go up, but not at the clip that they were for the last like 18 months. It's actually slowed down a bit. And so we're going to still see, even though the values are just going to kind of hold, maybe go down a little bit, we're not going to see that in the rental market. We're not going to see the correction where rents go down, that the metrics just aren't there. There are too many. If everybody has to have a roof over the head, if all of a sudden everybody's not purchasing homes, they have to go do something else. It's called renting or finding more roommates and things like that. So that puts pressure on the rental market when the overall housing market has slowed considerably. So the answer to that is the rental prices will move up probably at a slower pace than they did over the last 18 months. Let's see. What do you suggest telling clients who are on hold on the buyers end due to rates? Yeah, you really can't. Timing the market is the most difficult thing that you can potentially do. And my thing is, you meet with your lender and you come up with the different scenarios and you figure out how much you can qualify for, and then you go out there and look, and then you go pull the trigger and you purchase. And down the road, you know what? It's kind of like you fall in love with a home and you don't fall in love with a loan. There is the potential, and I wouldn't sell any client on this. I wouldn't say, hey, I want them to be happy with where they're at, and then be happy with the payment, and know that if 5 or 6 years down the road, or 1 year down the road, we get interest rates that really soften to the point where they can refinance, well, then that's absolutely fantastic. And can that happen? Absolutely. And I'll explain later in some of the other questions that I have. So let's see. Here we go from Andrew. How do you see SoCal market performing in the next half a year versus the rest of the country? Now SoCal is a little bit different because our frothy comps are a lot frothier than other areas. Like when I heard that story of a townhome near the beach in I believe it was in Redondo Beach that sold $200,000 above their asking price at the start of this year, I was thinking, man, that is just not what you want to do when rates are rising in the background. So this is where there could be a little bit of softening in prices when people are comping things out and they're saying, I'm not purchasing at that frothy thing, especially when back in December and January, we had sales that closed at here. And now we had these other ones that came on in February and March, and then we have these sales that closed up here, and they're saying, I just don't want to pay that big discrepancy of an extra $200,000. That's why there's some zip codes where there was even more of that happened. And I've had reports. I was in Carlsbad, and there's some zip codes in Carlsbad that are absolutely nutty. And I just think it has to do with all of the extra frothy comps that were in certain specific areas. If you had a lot that came on, it got really frothy in an area, and then now a buyer starts looking around, and let's say they're in Carlsbad and they're looking at Oceanside and Encinitas and all around there. They start looking around, they start seeing the similar sized properties at less. They're going to pull the trigger on those less properties, and those others are going to sit dormant until they reduce and bring it down to a market that is justified in areas that are surrounding that city or that zip code. And so that's where it's a bit squirrely. It gets very, very hard in pricing when you're up against what the most recent comps are, but it doesn't really hold true for what the overall market is. So let's see. I thought prices were super high in 2006 and through most of 2007, 2008 was the start of the tough times. Yeah, Robin, you just can't compare this market to the Great Recession. And each recession behaves differently. That Great Recession, there was so many bad things that we did. And by the time we knew that there was a problem in 2005. So if you're feeling there's a problem, and we're right here in 2012, based upon that, I mean, 2022, that means that in 2024, that's where prices come down. Everything will be good in 2023. That's just not what I see, because the overall housing market is pretty rock solid with you no longer could. I used to say you had fog of mirror, and that's what everybody said. But back then, even dead people got loans, and people qualified for teaser rate loans that were really low. And there was just pick a payment plans and fraudulent lending, and there's so many different things that were going on back there. And there's tons of bankruptcies, and people were qualified for loans that they should never even had to begin with. So you can't really compare that period to where we are today. You almost can't compare any recession to any prior recession. Unfortunately, that's where our minds go back to. So this recession is going to behave differently. We're trying to get a grip on where we're at and how long, if these interest rates continue to stay where they're at, or if inflation's even more stubborn, which I don't believe it is. I think we're going to get inflation to start to really come down maybe by the end of this year, and we could be surprised indefinitely by next year, because right now it's a gigantic chunk of the core inflation numbers. That's what the Fed likes to look at, where rents are at. And their rental index that they have is such a bad lag. It's not where rents are today. It was where rents were like 6 to 9 months ago. It's that aggregate back there. And so they're just right now coming through right now. So right now we're starting to see the rents are not going up at the same clip that they were. But by the time that we see it, it's not going to be until the start of next year where we'll start to see it in the core inflation numbers. So we're going to be sticky high as far as inflation is for quite some time. And I'll talk more about that, but you really can't compare this to that. Each recession is going to be different, and we're going to try to map out where we're at and where we're going as we get new information, because new information is constantly changing. We had interest rates that were at 5% in just last month. And now we have interest rates that are pushing 6 1/3. right now. So that's where they're at today. So that's a big difference just from last month. And we saw a change in demand back then. And of course, these higher interest rates, there's going to be another change in demand based upon those interest rates. So it's very, very volatile. It's constantly changing. And that the inflation number that came out, that was caused the market to go even more sideways. So, and we saw 10-year treasuries and 30-year mortgages go up higher as well for that. And it's constantly evolving too, because I didn't think that all of a sudden it was 24% of the number of homes that came on the market we were missing compared to prior to COVID. We were missing a big chunk, like 24% of all of the market was missing what would normally come on in August. And it was even worse. I believe it was San Diego County, they're at 33%, missing 33% of all of their homes. And in Orange County, missing 30%. And it's like something like 1,600, something like that, homes in San Diego County didn't come on the market that should have last month. And it was over 1,000 in Orange County. Those are the two biggest counties with the biggest differentials. But we're starting to see that across the United States, that there are a lot of homeowners that feel entrenched in their house and they're not going to move because of their low rates. Let's see. Oops. Let's go into... And this is an interesting one. And how would OC be affected by a predicted recession in Q1, Q2 of 2023? So overall, we'll just have to see where the jobs are being lost. Because right now, the Fed is not happy with a couple things. They don't like how low unemployment got because it created a labor market where the labor market was in the driver's seat and there's way too many job openings compared to the number of people that were looking for jobs. So there was this big imbalance. And as a matter of fact, for everybody that has a bachelor degree or better, the unemployment is less than 2%. That's just far too low. That creates a lack of a replacement employment, and they need those numbers to go up a little bit. Because what happens is when those numbers start getting too low, you start getting a work ethic that's a little bit different, and productivity starts to go down. And we want to see that productivity stabilizes. Right now, productivity has been on the decline recently. So we'll have to see where it shakes out and where we're at, what cracks first. The Fed's trying to create an issue where something cracks in the economy and the economy slows. That crack hasn't come. Most likely it's going to come by the end of the year, and then we'll start to see it show in a recession. And we're not even going to know we're in a recession. There are some people that have pretty good indexes to show us when we're actually in a recession. One of them is this gal by the name of SAHM Psalm, and she can be found on the Fed website, Fred. You can go there and see her. She can tell you real live when we're in the midst of a recession, and currently her it's showing that we're not. But overall, I think what happens once we get into recession, what's happened every year, every time we've had a recession since 1980, is we get interest rates that come down. We haven't seen the economy slow down enough. And once we start to see slower metrics and slower charts and slower data, because I have people that are arguing that there's all this slowness, well, that's not what we're seeing enough in all the charts and data. Once we start seeing that, you're going to start to see that in the future, the Fed can start to back off a little bit from their aggressive plan. A. B, you're going to start to see that people move their money towards long-term investments, 10-year treasuries and 30-year mortgages. When they start moving towards that, that makes interest rates and the 10-year treasury fall. And we could see we saw interest rates that were just about to tip below 5%, and then they reversed in August. But if we actually slowed down enough, yes, can I foresee an interest rate all the way down in the fours? Yeah, I could see an interest rate of 4.5% in the midst of a recession, but we have to get there first. And that's what I think we can see in Q1 or Q2 of 2023. And that, if we had them come down, that would allow some homeowners to place their homes on the market and make that leap from one property to another. So we get a little bit of movement in the repeat sellers, as well as we could see demand come up because interest rates have fallen all the way from where they are today at 6 1/3 all the way down towards 4.5. That's a big change, and that should increase demand as well. Just like we saw an increase in demand when we got to 5% those couple times in August. Let's see. I like that. Yeah, this is what we're starting to see. Thankfully, 50% of all homes closed in San Clemente and Dana Point in the last 60 days closed below ask price. Some of them way below the original ask price. Yeah, well, some of the original ask prices. This pricing it according to the frothy comps and then having to come back down towards the regular neighborhood of where they should be value wise. Values as far as pricing, you're trying to say a 3,000 square foot home and then you compare it to another 3,000 square foot home. That's no longer it. That's not what it is, because that's what people were looking for, and they were willing. You could see it just ratchet up based upon square footage, number of bedrooms and baths, and all that stuff. That's not necessarily it. Now, it really does boil down to what a fair market value is for a home, and you really need to dial that in as far as fair pricing is concerned. You get it in at the fair market value, and you can. Here's how I say you arrive at the fair market value. Property that is going to get top dollar is if it's priced according to the comps and it looks like a model and it has all the bells and whistles. Good location, nice size yard or whatever. It boils down to the condition, the location, the amenities, the upgrade, the overall sizzle appeal of the house. Anything that's less than that needs to be adjusted in price. Any property that has deferred maintenance, or I call them the properties that are the dogs that smell like a dog, look like a dog, they need to be priced like a dog. And that's where they need to be at in order to get rid of them. Back over like the last couple of years, you were able to just place that thing on the market and there was nothing available, and it got gobbled up with multiple offers, and it went higher than everybody anticipated. And like the same thing goes for a property that backs up to an inferior location. For the last couple of years, you were able to just place it on the market and it got what everybody else got, and maybe even set a record for the area, or at least matched it. And now, if you've got two properties that are like for like, and one's interior and the one's sitting there in an inferior location, maybe backing to a busy street or power lines or something like that, those are the houses that need to adjust their value for their inferior location compared to the rest of the comps. So now it really does boil down to taking as much time and being very deliberate in pricing. That is where it is all at. You got to be so careful with pricing. And unfortunately, we're coming off of a market where you didn't have to be deliberate and very careful. So there's going to be a lot of reductions in prices. So across the United States, I believe it's at 40%. In Orange County that you mentioned, it's at 40%. Pretty much for all of SoCal is at 40%. 40% of the entire market has reduced the price at least once. And that is a little bit higher than where it normally is. Prior to COVID was right around 33%. So it's a little bit higher, and that's because we're adjusting for this other market. We will go back to adjusting as these more homeowners get it and they sit down and they're very, very careful with pricing. You won't have to have as many price reductions because things are still selling fast if they are priced according to what their fair market value is based upon condition, location, amenities, upgrades, and all that stuff that I just mentioned. So, I already did that one. Let's see. There's less everybody. It seems that there is a much lower interest with buyers looking for a home. Yeah. That's true. Randy, you bring up a great point. There's a less inventory, but it seems to me that there is much lower interest with buyers looking for a home. What kind of impact do you think this will have in South OC? It's not just South OC, it's everywhere. In Southern California, it's the same thing that I've been talking about. Yeah, there's less inventory. Remember, we had less inventory before, but extra demand. When you have extra demand, things fly off the market and it sizzles. And instead, we have this market where we have way less demand, but we also have fewer homes on the market. So those buyers still don't feel like there's a whole lot of properties that are available. But if it's not priced according to its fair market value, it will sit. Buyers are scrutinizing what's available, and a lot of the stuff that's available, there's reasons why things don't sell. I can see anytime that somebody talks about a home and I see one that's been listed for a long time, I can actually drill down and figure out exactly what it is. Sometimes it's just circumstantial stuff, but most of the time there is an absolute solid reason for why a home is sitting for longer. So it's going to take longer to sell homes now today based upon how demand is muted, matched up against that low inventory. Now, can you imagine? So this low demand that we're experiencing right now, Can you imagine if it was matched up against, there was an extra 3 or 4 homes on every street? Now, not only do buyers have to get the opportunity to take their time, but values were going screaming down because people had lost their jobs. They couldn't make their payments. Banks and foreclosures activity was off the charts. So, yeah, I think that's interesting. Why do buyers think it's 2008? Roseanne, people think it's 2008 because they remember the Great Recession. And always we go back to that because it was a burn that most everybody felt. And do you remember when you've been scorched, like when you go to Hawaii, you reapplied sunscreen, but then you went there up and played and you got so red that you couldn't even take a shower? You remember that burn. Everybody remembers their burn from 2008, and they keep on going back to that. And the market won't behave like it did in 2008 because we have a completely different one. And so that's what's going on with that right now. Let's see. I like this one. It says, any advice on how long to hold out on making a price adjustment in San Bernardino? Home is priced appropriately, but have had slow movement. Now, right now, one of the other things is you have to price right and then pack your patience. Things don't sell instantly any longer. It's just part of the program. In San Bernardino County, I told you, their expected market time for all of Southern California is 90 days. That's 3 months. So you have to really drill down price as well as get the right value. You pack your patience. Yeah, let's see. Here's, I think I've got a last few. Let's see. Why is Zillow so? Boy, there's so many great questions. I'm just cruising through them all and seeing that. We'll get to this one. Samantha Burns, it seems to me that the existing homes are competing with the new home builds and their incentives, so you have to make it attractive. That's in certain areas. Now, if you have a new development someplace close by in your city, or maybe a city over, you really have to be careful in knowing what the competition is, and then knowing what they're doing. They're not right now. There's not all builders are sitting on a tremendous amount of inventory, but they're busy building and they have had some cancellations. So that down the road, they will have to make an adjustment. And maybe they'll throw in more allowances so they don't have to come down as far in price, but there will be some movement there. So you have to take into consideration new home inventory because it can affect the pricing in specific cities. And then how about this one? There are a lot of lenders offering ARM loans now and 0 down in conjunction with the recession. Do you anticipate a nightmare? It is at such a minimal number of these kind of programs. The amount of adjustables that we're talking about are typically fixed for 7 years. The 7-1, fixed for 7 years, and then it floats at the prevailing rate. But that is staying fixed for 7 years. That's more of the variety of what we're seeing. We're not seeing these teaser rate loans where they adjust after a year or 2 years, or and the terms are just nasty. That's not what we have. We don't have anything like that, and you have to qualify for the adjusted amount. So these are carefully done, with the exception of one program that's out there that B of A was floating out there. And I know that they just have a pilot program, and this is the wrong time to do anything where you're giving a very, very low down payment or these no look loans. It's almost sounded gimmicky to me, and they called it a pilot, but I just don't see it has legs. We're not seeing this like an avalanche all of a sudden of new products that are available. Talk to lenders. They're the ones that can fill you in on this. And let's see. Whoa, why is Zillow so off? Because it's a computer model. That's it. There's no computer model in the world that can actually accurately depict exactly where values are. If that was the case, we wouldn't have a Case-Shiller home buyer, Case-Shiller, the Case-Shiller index. We wouldn't have that. We wouldn't have a couple of those other indexes. Do you know that the Case-Shiller index gets released at the end of the month? At the end of this month, so the one that was just released a couple weeks ago was for the month of June. And the month of June took into consideration April, May, and June. And April is still a frothy month. So April, May, and June, that chunk of time. Now, at the end of this month, we're going to get July, which is May, June, July. But it takes them so long to figure out where values are because they're doing like for like properties and really trying to hone in values. It takes them a while to get there. So they're going to report on July at the end of this month. We're going to be practically into October at that time. So it's so dated as to where it is. So you know where values are at based upon where we were in the past, but it takes time to get there. It's was slow to respond when values were going up. That was Case-Shiller because it was taken into consideration some old comps. By the time it got to the current month that we were in, we were down the road. And it's got the same problem once we have a market that's slowing down. So we're seeing that the Case-Shiller index is starting to fall right now, where it's not falling negative, it's falling and it's diminishing from 20%, over 20% to where it is right now at 18. It's going to continue to go down. Somebody asked me where I think values are going to be at the end of the year. Most likely, it's going to be around, I'd say 10 to 12. That's just that's throwing it way out there, not seeing anything right now, but I can anticipate maybe 10 by the time they do December. But when does December come out, by the way? December comes out at the end of February. So we're not even going to know where we were at the end of the year until well into 2023. So let's see. I love this question. I get this. Did the pandemic cause the huge demand, or would these increases happen anyways? We were already, prior to the pandemic, we were already having readings that were looking very hot. And that was because of this demographic patch of millennials that were coming into the equation. They were added into the equation, creating more first-time homebuyer demand. On top of already, we had inventory that was falling. We actually had it was a slow, sluggish start to 2019. And at the end of 2019 got really busy, and it made for a very, very low number of homes to start off 2020. And demand was already increasing like crazy. Then everything changed once we went into COVID. COVID made things worse because, yeah, we got that muted demand, but what else did we get? We're going to have a great market in 2020 had it not been for COVID. And then COVID made things even more different because now we had homeowners not coming on the market as interest rates were dropping. Buyers came in really quickly prior to the inventory even coming back up. And then they started eating into existing inventory, and inventories floated down for the rest of 2020 as demand increased because we had 17 all-time record low interest rate levels hit throughout 2020. And the last one was hit in January of 2021 at, what was it, 2.65%, somewhere around there. That was ridiculous. So, yeah, I love this one. What is the point on days on market where agents should start to be concerned that it's sitting too long? Oh, yeah. Like I said, you really need to know what the flavor is for your marketplace. My housing report drills down in the different counties, each city, and also the price ranges. So you want to go and kind of look at to see what is the expected market time for your city, and then where are you price-wise. The higher the price, the longer it's going to take typically. And that's starting to revert to a more normal level where the upper end's really starting to slow compared to the lower end. It wasn't as much of a discrepancy when we had the market just absolutely fire hot over like the last year. And but now it's days on market. Where am I concerned? I'm just constantly analyzing comps, and I'm constantly looking at what is the number, what's the velocity of the market, how many properties are going under contract, how many homes are coming on, where am I at in the mix? It's a constant moving target. So I couldn't answer exactly where you should be concerned if it's a certain day. It's just you have to be constant communication because you have to be prepared to adjust if your market is adjusting where your home is at. And then there are more, and I'll get to these because this last one before I get to some of these questions. Housing affordability hits worst level in 37 years. It's the highest payment to income ratio since October 1985, when it took 36% of household income to make a payment. Just in January, that ratio was 24.6, below the long-term average of 25. Yeah, that is why we have demand seizing. we have demand going down to where there is just demand that is, it's inherent demand. There are some people that can afford to do it. They have more money down. They have some extra money that has come in. They can afford the payments because they're making good money, or they got a new job, or they're making considerable amount more. There is still demand. There always is demand. There always is. But this, what you're pointing out in here, is exactly why we're seeing demands slow down, and they have changed that adjustment. I know Black Knight did theirs, and they said it's now back to Great Recession levels, but still, it's not that great if you compare it to 37 years worth of Great Recession levels. Just know that until we have interest rates fall, it's going to be like this. We'll have to see how this unfolds. I have an idea of where it's going to go. I don't have my 2023 forecast yet, but I have an idea, and I'm working on it right now. So I'll answer the other questions offline. There are a couple of others. Cassie French asked, do you think interest rates will go back down during the first quarter of 2023? I think we already answered that. Or are we too far in trouble with interest rates being so low for so long that we not see lower interest rates for a while? I talked about where I think lower interest rates are going to be, and that is once we're in a recession. Is there any solid evidence that prices are going down or up? Yeah, I looked at Case-Shiller. Case-Shiller for San Diego County is down 0.7% for the month of June. And remember, that takes in April, May, June. So there is going to be some pushback, like I said, from those frothy comps that we made. And also in Orange County, and it's not Orange County, LA includes Orange County, LA, and parts of San Bernardino County. There's this big chunk. It's gigantic. And that went down 0.2%. For the month of June. If you're looking at $1 million house, that's like $2,000. But that's it. That's just the beginning of it. I think it's going to come down a little bit more and overall, even though I am in this like slight sellers market where it lines up a little bit in favor of sellers, it's very, very balanced. And what I mean by that is there is so much pressure on pricing because of these low interest rates. I mean, the high interest rates, that the only thing that is keeping this from plunging is the fact that there is that undercurrent of not enough homes on the market. So when you don't have that much product, it's very, very hard for values to come down or come down fast, especially when homeowners don't have to sell. They're more than happy, because if they sold, where are they going to go? Go buy something else at a higher rate? Or they think they're going to cash out now and go what? Rent? I already told you where I think rents are going to go. They're going to continue to go up. And if you've seen what rents are right now, for a lot of people that have been in their house for many, many years, renting is just as expensive as their current payment. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I just don't see where we're going to get all this flood of inventory to match up against this low demand to allow values to really come down. But I do see that there is a tremendous amount of pressure because of like what Andre talked about, of affordability metrics being just so off that it's really slowing things down to the point where buyers just don't want to overpay. Now, I have seen this happen in most markets, is if a property looks like that model, smells like a model, it's got cookies in the oven, and it's got all the upgrades, it's got a good location, amenities and all that stuff, and it looks just good, and then somebody prices it right where it needs to be, and then they get, it's not only going to attract one buyer, there's multiple agents and buyers that are looking at the same house. Then all of a sudden you have what we call multiple offer situation. And those are still out there, these multiple offer situations on the properties that look like a model. It's like I said, everything else that doesn't quite fit that category of looking like a model and has some things that detract it from a model, that's where we're seeing a lot more. They need to adjust for the fact that they are not modelicious. I just made that up. And let's see, another one. Mehdi Araragi said, I see a lot of house prices drop. Some of them have been priced high and now dropping, but some are priced right and still dropping. Do you think this is due to prices going down? I do think that we can see some values go down. I don't think we're going to get that plunge in values until I see more houses on the market. I was encouraged earlier this year that we saw houses, because we need some sort of of something to give one way or the other. And we have these higher interest rates. So what I thought we're going to have more and more homes, and by the time we got to October, we'd have 2019 level number of homes, and it would be matched against this higher interest rates. So that would allow for prices to come down a little bit. Now, keep in mind, values have already come up like what, 40%. So yes, they would start to come down. And I could actually plausibly see that happen. But then all of a sudden, homeowners said, I'm not moving. So that changed the whole situation there. So I do see pressure on pricing. I can see it come down slowly, but it definitely, we're not going to see any plunging. Let's see, Jason Risley, inflation is definitely a negative, but the point is, given that if inflation occurs like it is now, that real estate is by far the best investment because you win three ways. Real estate values go up, real estate rents go up, debt debasement. The value of the debt goes down because paying back the debt isn't with cheaper dollars. Do you see real estate as the best investment during inflationary times? I just know that my family has owned real estate and rentals and all that for since the 50s. So my grandparents started this thing. I'm a third generation nutty guy that loves real estate. Yes, it is definitely an asset worth investing in long term. And yes, a fixed payment is a definite great hedge against inflation. So yeah, you can make that argument, but a buyer is still going to sit down and they're facing 6.33% interest rates. That is really high. So you're going to get fewer buyers that are going to be willing to do that because it just doesn't make economic sense for their family. And that's at the end of the day, that's what dads and moms and men and women have to do. They have to decide on, is this am I able to afford this payment? If the answer is yes, then by golly, go buy. And then hold on to it for many, many years and know that down the road, hey, you know what? You might get a break and you're going to be able to refinance. I bought in 2019 and I was able to refinance 2 years later at an incredible low interest rate. And I wasn't expecting to be able to refinance. I was happy with my payment before. I'm really happy now. And there's a lot of people that fit my category, which means there's a lot of people that won't be selling because they were happy before with their payment. They're really happy now. And now rates have gone way up. So it's going to be a unmotivational piece for many people. Claudette said, what comps are best used in the current market? The past 2 years are not realistic. How we would be looking at 2019? How about, should we be looking at 2019? Yeah, I love that the comps are best. The past 2 years are not realistic. I don't buy that. I really don't. That's not how comps work. You're going to be comping it out based upon recent closed sales. I told you that you can't comp it out based upon the extra frothy sales, but there are still properties that are selling very, very quickly because they've done all the right necessary things. Looks like a model, priced it right towards market value, flew off the market. Those still exist. It really boils down to carefully pricing, knowing that you have to subtract for your green carpet or the fact that you didn't do landscaping or the fact that the roof needs to be redone or paint on the outside or paint on the inside or the kitchen is really outdated or there are so many things that detract from value. And the more detracted things you have from value, the more you have to discount in this kind of a market to make your home stand out. Or you do all the work like still flippers can get away with in this market where they've fixed up a home, they did everything that they need to do, and then boom, voila, they picked up a home that needed a lot of repair. They did the repairs and they got top dollar for it, even in this marketplace. So I hope that helps. Let's see. Frank said, his CPA said, you have said that according to the housing data, there is no chance of a crash or really even a decline in prices. How does employment factor into this? Let's say we hit a massive recession and people are losing their jobs left and right. Could this change your outlook? Even if people have great rates and they love their home, they don't want to move. Wouldn't job loss be something that could put folks in a position where they're forced to sell? The answer is yes to that. That answer is yes, they could be forced to sell if in a job loss recession. We'll have to see how everything unfolds. Right now, I'm not anticipating a giant job loss recession because right now we have the opposite problem of way too many jobs. Yes, they want that pendulum to start swinging the other way, but there's not a whole lot of forced selling right now. We need forced selling. And so that's why prices will not plunge. Now, dial back to 2007, 2008, 2009, and 10. We had a truckload of foreclosures. There were so many foreclosures in the thousands, even here in Southern California. I actually, back in the day, represented banks and did a ton of foreclosures. And every day I was getting a new property. So there were tons and tons, just a sea of them. And they were in charge of our market. When you have more than a third of the housing stock where short sales have to be approved by lenders, or foreclosures, which are foreclosure owned, it means the banks are running things and they're able to set prices where they want them to be in order to get the sales, because they need to get off their books. There's just not a lot of that kind of forced selling. As a matter of fact, delinquencies are at their all-time lows dating back to the 70s, since they started recording delinquencies. And so we don't have that market coming forward. Can I foresee that? I don't see these people being in foreclosure or short sale situations. If they do get in a pinch, hopefully they have enough reserves where they can tap into the reserves and then sell their house, because we do need more homes to come on the market. We'll just have to wait and see as to how everything plays out. As far as what we're seeing right now is we don't have any of those elements. So as far as us prognosticating exactly where we will be down the road, will those job losses be more of the renters, or will it be a mix of everybody? We're just going to have to fasten our seatbelts and see how everything unfolds from here as the Fed gets inflation under control. So what I do see in prices, remember, you said that I didn't see prices going down. I can see prices drift down slowly because of all the immense amount of pressure with values being so high and interest rates being so high. So affordability is off the charts as far as unaffordable. So Max asked, I'm curious about whether or not the recent sharp increase in consumer credit debt could affect any house supply demand dynamics. It seems as though people are leveraging consumer credit to uphold the post-COVID lifestyle, and any volatility in oil, utility, and foods will continue to cause price shocks for consumers. Just curious about your perspective on those external factors from an economic perspective, and whether or not they have any notable effects on the housing market. I mean, it could. Now, a lot of homeowners are still sitting fine and they refinance. And they have these great rates that it allows them to do it. But there are some families that are utilizing a lot more credit. And I have seen some reports where some of it is more of the renter that affects. And so it's almost like this disparity between the haves and the have-nots is going to grow, because if you're a renter and you saw your rents continuously climb, and also now you're being hit with inflation, and now you're placing things on credit cards, it's just an unfortunate part of what they're trying to do in fixing this inflation problem by throwing everything they can at it. Because on top of it, now they have credit card debt, because when they're changing these short-term rates, it's not affecting long-term debt as much as it is the short-term rates. So these credit card bills have underlying interest rates that have been going up since the Fed has been increasing the short-term rate, and they're going to be announcing probably a 0.75 rate increase next week. So that is more to come, but we'll have to wait and see as to how it affects the homeowner, and that's really what we're watching. As far as if you want to know what's going to happen with homeownership, that's what we have to carefully watch and dissect. I haven't seen the numbers dissected closely enough to have a really strong answer on that, and it's something that I will have to continue to look at. And it's definitely something that we're looking at. So I just have a couple more. Robert Haga, where do you see prices ending up at the end of 2022, up, down, or flat year over year? What is your prediction for the market in 2023? I already said it. 2022, I think we're going to be about up 10% by the time we get to the end of the year, 10 to 12. And as far as next year, I don't know. I'm working on my forecast right now. I have an idea, but I'm not going to say it yet because I'm not done. Michelle said, Michelle Trupke, in your opinion, are housing prices continuing to drop? I think, should we as realtors hold out and just wait for that one buyer, suggest our sellers take small incremental pricing decreases? Pack your patience, price your home right. We're in a much more normal market where it doesn't sell instantly. That's the bottom line. We shouldn't be doing these incremental price decreases over time. That's not the way to adjust to a market. You just have to look at it like a general, and you have all the comps and everything out, and you need to know what your market is. And then you need to know how your market's evolving and continuously look at more data, new data, so that you can make better decisions as the marketing time progresses. That's how I would personally be doing it. And an anonymous said, what do you tell people who say they are waiting for foreclosures and short sales? I already told you delinquency rate is in the dirt. and is at the lowest level since tracking in the late 70s. So I think that's enough. I've done about an hour of this, gone way longer than all my other ones. So I appreciate it. I'll answer anything else that was in the chat. I really appreciate you tuning in. I hope you have a fantastic finish to your week, and we will see you next week. I'm Stephen Thomas with Reports on Housing. Please like and subscribe. Go to youtube.com and like and subscribe Reports on Housing.